Good evening, everyone. Welcome to week 9 of 10 of Stewarding Your Personal Finances right here through the South Houston Bible Institute. I am your instructor, Greg Pare, and tonight we're going to be dealing with investing, or Investing 101 as I call it. And before we get started, just want to ask if either one of you two ladies here live with us tonight, either takeaways so far from the class, something you've implemented, questions you might have about anything that we have covered, little miniature wins, a little baby win, or any progress.
This is Carla. I did take time out and get with my State Farm Insurance and had them to send me over some updates if I upped my deductibles. So they sent me over 3 different things, and my husband and I are going to sit down and talk about which is best, because I told him we do have the cash to pay for the cash deductible if it was $1,000, if we raise it to $1,000. And so it would actually save us about $95 for 6 months. So that's a good thing.
95 per month or 95 total?
95 total for 6 months.
Okay, so that's an area, and thank you for sharing that. That's an area where, again, you and your husband, what is your current deductible, 500 or 250?
Yeah, 250.
Yeah, so again, and that's a perfect example. Okay, is it worth it for us to be out of pocket $250 or $1,000 for just $95? That's something you and your husband will have to talk about, but still, 95, I mean, that's $200 a year that we could be doing something else with. And so that's just something that on your comfort level that you may or may not choose to do, but at least now you are aware and you can make good informed decisions. And notice that more than likely your insurance agent just automatically put 250 in there because guess what? They are commissioned salespeople and they want as much of your money as they can get. Now, I have nothing against good insurance agents, but more than likely it might not have been explained, or they automatically do the lowest deductible so they can charge you the most money. So, do you own or rent your house?
We're buying.
You're buying. Did you happen to ask about your home deductible?
No, I sure didn't. I sure didn't.
If they're also with State Farm, you might see, okay, do you have a 1% deductible? Do you have a 0.5% deductible? What would happen if we would raise that up to, a percent or 2% or something like that? Again, you have to be along in the baby steps to where you have the cash to do it and also be able to sleep well at night. So, it's a risk reward situation, but well done on that. Good job on that.
Thank you.
And you said something else more important. My husband and I are going to discuss it.
Yes.
That warms my heart when spouses are talking about finances.
Yeah, we do. And he said, you get the quotes and we'll sit down and talk about it. And then we did kind of discuss it a little bit. And, and I was trying to really explain to him that, we have the cash, we can up the deductible if we wanted to. So we're still talking about it.
Sure. And this was on your vehicles, right?
Yes, we have 3 vehicles. All of them are paid off.
Oh, good for you. Have you had many claims in the last 3 or 4 or 5 years?
Oh no, which is a blessing.
So that's exactly. So let's look at that. So if you would have chosen to have done that 3 or 4 or 5 years ago, now all of a sudden you're talking close to $1,000, $2,000 in savings.
Yes.
And so moving forward, now of course you can't blame me if you choose to up your deductible, to $1,000, and the next day your car gets broken into and your glass gets shattered. That's not my fault.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Little baby wins, Annette, we're talking about tiny little baby wins, takeaways, or any, in this case, Cindy was talking about checking for her automobile deductible. She is going to check on her home deductible, maybe coming up. So, and Waikisha just jumped on. So we are talking about little baby wins or takeaways or questions before we dive into investments. Anyone else?
I do. I just was. Can you hear me today?
Yes.
Awesome.
That's a
I
win.
just.
That's a win. We can hear you.
Yes, it is. I received my check in the mail today from the website you gave us, the unclaimed property. Yeah, so I received a check in the mail. Actually, I need to go in. This one states that it's from Texas, but I'm actually from Illinois, and I saw some unclaimed properties on that website as well. So I'm going to do it again.
Free money, free money, free money. That'll help with an emergency fund or whatever your next goal is. If your next goal is
Yeah.
to pay off a credit card, put it towards that. If your next goal is, your first goal is to start your emergency fund, put it there. And so that's awesome. Well done. Good for you.
Yes.
That's a win. Okay, well, we're going to go ahead and get started with investments. So now I know not all of us may or may not be ready to have money to invest because we're still trying to gather our emergency fund. We're still trying to get out of debt. Remember the baby steps. The baby steps, we are first, actually, let me call them up. I should have had those ready. Should have had those up. We need to make sure we do everything in the right order. So some of, I got to invest, I've got to invest, I've got to invest. Well, no, let's remember, here are the baby steps, and we need to do these in this order. It is a proven method, tried and true, millions of people. Number one, save $1,000 for your starter emergency fund. Number two, pay off all your debt except for the house. Number three, then we're going to build our emergency fund, 3 to 6 months of expenses. Now, that's not necessarily 3 to 6 months of take home or what you're currently living on. It's the necessities. For most people, 6 months is somewhere around $15,000 to $20,000. You're not getting your hair and nails done if you lose a job or if you have a spouse in the hospital dying of cancer and you can't work. What are the bare bones we need? You don't need every cable channel. You need your cell phone, your rent or mortgage, your food, you're not saving for Christmas. We're not saving for car repairs. The bare bones that if, kind of life kicks us in the teeth, we'll be able to pay our bills for 6 months or so. For most people, $15,000 to $20,000. Then once we have that fully funded emergency fund, then we're going to start investing. And that's what we're going to talk about. After we start investing, we're going to save for college, pay off our house early, and then build wealth and give. So tonight, again, we are going to talk about investing. And of course, investing is after we have our 6-month emergency fund. So this investment talk, I was asked to do a little talk for Boy Scouts of all things. And so I thought, wow, how am I going to make investments pretty simple for beginners? And so as I was giving this talk, you guys have attended, Boy Scout, Girl Scout meetings or other kids events where the parents come early, leave early, whatever, and they line the back of the room. They're all standing in the back of the room. I'm giving this talk and nobody leaves after they drop their kids off. And they're standing there and they're in the back of the room. I get all the bobbleheads. I'm doing all those bobbleheads. And most of them afterwards came and said, wow, this was perfect for me. So while I had aimed it at the kids, most of the adults in the room said, this is perfect for me. And so I've kind of adopted this as my beginner investment talk for adults alike. So some of you may be way beyond this, and that's cool. That's awesome. But I think, again, like most of the things that I do, I hope you'll get a few nuggets. First of all, we have to define investments. Some of the words you hear, spoken. What are investments? Oh, stocks, apartments, rent houses, baseball cards, silver, sports cars, gold, cattle, bonds, mutual funds, oil wells. Those are just some of the common investments that you may kick around or hear kicked around. So how is money made through investments? Well, right here, number one, they can increase in value. Some investments increase in value, like coins. You may buy some coins. You may buy some baseball cards. You may buy cattle. You may buy sports cars. Those are things that perhaps increase in value. Other investments, right here, they pay interest. Things like stocks, bonds, mutual funds. The most common, example of paying interest is a certificate of deposit, or like a checking account or a savings account. They pay interest along the way. Now, when you hear the term growth in income, boy, isn't it great if things increase in value and pay interest along the way. You typically call that's a growth in income type of investment. Stocks, bonds, mutual funds. Great example of that is a rent house. You buy a rent house for $100,000, you're getting $1,000 rent every month, but along the way, over time, the $100,000 rent house is increasing in value, that when you go to sell it 5 years, 10 years, 20 years down the road, it has increased in value. So we call those types of investments growth because they grow in value, and income because it provides income along the way. I love this definition of interest. One of my fellow coaching buddies at Dave Ramsey's office came up with this definition of interest. First of all, a fee paid for the use of another party's money. So someone is receiving a fee, and check this out. To the borrower, it's the cost of renting money. To the lender, it's the income from lending money. And this is what my buddy dumbed it down for me. He kind of turned it around a little bit and said, okay, here's my definition of interest. Interest that you pay is a penalty. Interest that you make is a reward. And I was like, that's brilliant. This is not a trick question. Would you rather pay penalties, or would you rather receive rewards? If you have any kind of debt, you are paying a penalty to be in debt. And this 90 days, same as cash. No, it's not 90 days, same as cash. You can walk into any Furniture USA, any automobile dealer USA. Oh, you're 90 days, same as cash on this $2,000 sofa. You could buy it for $1,800 paid in full that day, right then, right there. So I'm sorry, but in most cases, 90 days, same as cash, is not a true statement. It is a marketing gimmick. So again, I would rather receive rewards. And if my money is invested, remember, I'm receiving the rewards. If our money is tied up in car payments, credit card payments, student loans, look at it as a penalty because the lender is the one who's making your money. Look at all the fancy bank buildings. Again, nothing against bank buildings or bankers, but who do you think's building those nice fancy banks? It's the people who are borrowing money from the bank. You are. So I would rather reap rewards as opposed to paying penalties. All right, we've got to worry about interest rate. So typically you hear the word compound interest. How is money calculated? What is compound interest? And so, for example, on this chart, compound, let me see if I think I can maybe blow that up just a little bit. Although I bet you I'm going to, if I do that, I'm probably going to lose my chat windows and all my controls. So we're just going to leave it just like that. I'm not going to be able to stretch it just a little bit. And I'm going to go to my chat window. Where's my chat window? Okay, there's my chat over there. Sorry, while I navigate and drive just a little bit. So compound interest, let's say at year one, we have $1,000 to invest, and we are going to earn 10% compounded annually. That means 10% of $1,000 is $100. At the end of 1 year, you will have made $100. Your new principal, which is the amount that the interest is calculated off of, your new principal is now $1,100. So you don't have $1,000 to invest year two, you have $1,100 to invest year two. 10% of 1,100 is $110, not 100, because your principal is higher. At the end of 2 years, you have $1,210. Carry that to year three, 10% of 1,210 is $121. At the end of year three, we have $1,331. Year four, year five, there you have it. So at the end of 5 years, without you doing anything other than leaving your money alone, compounding the interest annually will have resulted in $610 of interest earned, free money based on $1,000. Albert Einstein said the greatest invention known to man is compound interest. And this is what you say, let your money work for you. And I love what Dave Ramsey says. He says, when your money makes more than you make for you, you have arrived. So in other words, if you're making $50,000 a year and you've got $1 million in the bank making 8% a year, your $1 million is making you $80,000 a year. You know, when your money makes more for you than you make for you, that's when you can kind of sort of relax a little bit. And so I'm fortunate to have been in that position for several years. And so it's kind of like what he says is it's kind of like, man, you're pedaling the bicycle uphill, 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 pedaling the bicycle, scraping to get the emergency fund, hoping we don't have a car wreck. Scrape. We're doing everything. We're paying off our debt. We're investing. We're compounding interest. And then we pedaling the bicycle at the top of the hill. And then we're starting to head downhill. You can just take your feet off the pedals and coast right on downhill. And that's kind of what he's talking about when your money makes more for you than you make for you. So compound interest. Now, just for fun, that's only I'm backing up here. This is $1,000 a year. I mean, $1,000, one single $1,000 bill that you're scraping together to put in and letting it ride for 5 years at 10%. Okay. What would happen if you would add $1,000 each year to your principal? $1,000, it's the same $1,100, but we're going to add, we've been saving, or we sold something, or we no longer have credit card debt. Now we can afford to add another $1,000 year two. Our principal beginning balance is $2,100. And so you can see if we add $1,000 a year, we've invested $5,000 and we've made $1,715.61 off of our $5,000 investment, we've made $1,700. So that's why we put systematically into our 401ks. That's why we put systematically into our mutual funds if we can afford to do so. So stocks, a great little video on stocks on Investopedia. We're going to talk about that, at one point in time. I'm not going to take the time to watch it, but here is basically their definition of how stocks, we've all heard stocks, what are stocks? Stocks are, let me see, I don't think I can play this clip. Let me see if I can browse for that. Investopedia on stocks. I thought that was loaded and was going to load. Yeah, here it is. We're gonna go ahead. This does a great job of explaining what stocks are, and so we're gonna go take just a minute to watch this video.
A stock is a share of the ownership of a company. As the owner of a stock, the stockholder, you have a claim on the company's assets and earnings. Suppose Steve is starting a company, Pies R Us. He needs $100,000, but doesn't want to borrow from a bank. Instead, Steve invests $10,000 of his own money and finds 9 other investors who are willing to invest $10,000 each. In return, he gives each investor a certificate that represents 10% of his company. Each certificate represents 10% of the company's assets, the building, the pie pans, and the baking materials, and 10% of any future earnings. After 1 year, the company is doing well, and the company's total value increases to $200,000. This means each share of the company is now worth $20,000. $200,000 divided by 10 shares. That's twice the original $10,000. The original investors can sell their stock in the company to other investors for a 100% profit. This is how stocks work. Stocks are bought and sold daily on the major exchanges.
All right, so there's a little bit on stocks.
Enjoy getting more, like more culinary camaraderie? Earn interest.
Close that window. Now, so Waikisha, we all know Waikisha. She's going to start her pie company, Pies R Us. And all of us are going to give Waikisha our $10,000 and invest in her pie company. How about that? Woohoo! We're in. Go Waikisha. There's only one problem. This is what her pies look like. I will pause for the chuckles. So we have just put our $10,000. Thank you, Tara Cindy. We have just, what have we done? We've put all of our $10,000 into one stock, one company. What's the phrase? Go ahead and type it. What have we just done by taking all of our money and investing in one company? The picture tells the story. What did we do? By typing. What are those? What are those in the basket? You've heard the saying.
Oh, all your eggs in one basket?
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. We put all of our eggs in one basket, and it happened to be we have broken eggs because unfortunately Waikisha doesn't bake good pies. So, however, she's improved and now she's making good pies. What if we would have taken that same $10,000? So that's individual stocks. We don't necessarily want to put all of our eggs in one basket. I'm going to now define mutual funds, which is the preferred method of investing according to Dave Ramsey. And it's what I've been doing since age 18. What if I wanted to invest in Waikisha's company? What if I wanted to invest in eBay and Pepsi and Coca-Cola and Levi's and Oreo and Nabisco and Procter and Gamble and some of these other companies? Well, so how do I do that? You do it through a mutual fund. What does that mean? Well, a mutual fund, now all of us, we are taking our same $10,000 and we are mutually funding the purchase of a bunch of shares in a bunch of different companies, all under one umbrella called a mutual fund. We do not have to be smart enough to figure that out. A fund manager, somebody like all the brokers that you see, Fidelity Investments, AG Edwards, Wells Fargo Growth Advisors, Capital One, Capital Choice, trained fund managers. In this particular case, this is a coat and tie in New York, and he takes all of our $10,000 and he says, I'm going to buy a little bit of Waukesha's Pie Company because she really does have a good recipe. I'm going to buy a little bit of Amazon. I'm going to buy maybe a little bit more of Coca-Cola. I'm going to buy a little bit of Walmart, and I am going to manage these for everybody who has funded it under one umbrella called the whatever, Great Companies of America Mutual Fund. Okay, are you with me so far? So the fund manager, it's his responsibility to know when to buy, when to sell, when to hold. And so he is constantly monitoring Waukesha's Pie Company, Walmart, Amazon, and under that umbrella of a mutual fund of all of these companies, he is buying and selling a little bit based on company news and what's going on. Okay? And that mutual fund, Great Company Mutual Fund of America, has a dollar value of $50 a share or $60 a share or something like that. So it's not one single company per se. He may say something like, okay, we have a whole bunch of different egg baskets. We're going to buy a little bit of McDonald's. Of course, after we go to McDonald's, we've got to run and have some dessert. So I'm going to buy some Hershey chocolate stock within my mutual fund. Gotta stop and fill up for gasoline. I've eaten too much chocolate, so I need to run to Walmart and I need to buy a little bit of Pare, aspirin, and what are we doing on our iPhones? You know, let's buy a little bit of Apple stock as well. Oh, and we've got to post about what we had for supper on Facebook. And so that's an example of that is one mutual fund, but you own, or the shares are split up. That $10,000 might be split up into a whole bunch of different individual stocks. So if Waukesha has one batch of bad pies, okay, it doesn't destroy all of the value. The fund manager may say, you know what, I'm going to back off and not buy as much of Waukesha's pie stock. I'm going to switch it over to Hershey or Apple. So basically, here's the difference between stocks and mutual funds. Individual stocks are putting all of your eggs in one basket. Mutual funds are an investment in one multiple company. I'm going to stop right there for any questions or comments.
I know the difference in these, but I think this is the most cohesive and easiest term I've ever heard. So thank you. It's easier for me to remember.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay. So now that we have mutual funds, what in the world is a mutual fund and how do we go about selecting mutual funds? If you've ever gone to an investment advisor and it seems like they're speaking a foreign language, well, you need to do some growth and income, then some international growth, and we're going to do some bond funds, and we're going to do some city management corporate bond funds. And you're like, number one, if you don't understand it, don't buy it. And so what Dave recommends, this is what I've done my entire life as well. So even within mutual funds, there are different categories. Typically, about 4 different sectors or 4 different buckets. Think of a bucket on your desk, 4 different buckets. There is large company mutual funds, kind of what I was just talking about, Pare and Pepsi, and the mutual funds are made up of large companies. There are mid-sized companies. Going back to the large companies, sometimes you'll hear your advisor say, well, those are growth funds. Remember we talked about growth? Because mostly those large companies, the value of the individual stocks grows in value. Growth. Mid-sized companies, I've got to lure you in. So we hope to grow, but I'm going to pay you interest along the way. Growth and income. A mid-sized company, believe it or not, an example would be Home Depot. Home Depot says, please buy shares of our stock, Mr. Mutual Fund Manager. And what we'll also do is along the way, every year, not only will we hope that the value of the mutual fund goes up, we're going to pay you a little interest based on how the company's doing as well. And we're going to add that to the value of your mutual funds as well. Small companies, perfect example, Waukesha's Pie Company. I ain't buying that. Man, sometimes that might be a higher risk. All of the Shark Tank companies, many of those would be called small companies. So number one, large companies growth. Number two, the mid-sized companies growth and income. The small companies, you might consider those a little bit of a higher risk. Or in the mutual fund world, they're called aggressive growth. Because if Waukesha hits it big, there's a good chance for some great returns. All of a sudden, Waukesha's on QVC, selling pies left and right, making us all a bunch of money. Well, it's a little bit of an aggressive gamble, but a certain percentage of your portfolio should be invested in small, aggressive growth mutual funds. And then finally, international or global mutual funds. Procter and Gamble, I mentioned. I believe they're owned by the Chinese, but we use toothpaste and so many of their products on a daily basis. We should have a part of our money invested in international mutual funds. What Dave recommends, 25% in large companies, 25 in mid-size, 25 in small, 25 in international. So if a person were contributing $100 a month to their retirement, you would say, please, Mr. Fund Manager or Mr. Retirement or HR person at your work, please put $25 into large companies, 25 into mid-size, 25 into small companies, and 25 into international or global. And that's why I asked if anyone is contributing to their work place fund. I hope you know what you're contributing to, or you just didn't pick the one that looked the best. Have some of these conversations, and you can choose more than one in many locations, in many companies, if you have a, employee retirement fund or something like that. Some employee stock option programs or profit sharing. There are different buckets where you can invest your money. perhaps as early as your onboarding practice with your company, they may have said, oh, what is your tolerance for, grow what if you for risk versus reward? And a lot of companies, they say, well, based on the fact that you're age 20 and you have 40 years to invest, or you're age 50 and you have 10 years to invest, they're going to dump you into a bucket based on your age. And they don't take into consideration all the times this type of breakdown. So, when you are ready to invest, I really want you to have these conversations and remember this slide right here. Understand what you are buying. How do you pick a good mutual fund? Well, again, go to your HR person or go get a good broker from AG Edwards or Wells Fargo or any of the other investment firms in and around your city. You might be able to talk with, again, your employee benefits person. But when you are picking mutual funds, you don't have to be that smart, but the recommended way to choose mutual funds, know what you're buying. Make sure that the mutual fund has a 10-year track record of performance. And you are ask the question, what is the average rate of return? You can't get 10%. You can't get 8%. Where are you getting 8%? Well, I'm lucky to get one. I'm going to dump it into a CD and make 0.25%. And this scares a lot of people away. But I promise, and I'm going to show you tonight, how you can find mutual funds with an average annual rate of return at 10%. Now, you're going to get that every single year? No. But I'm going to teach you that if you leave your money alone and you look at an average rate of return, I didn't say every single year, an average rate of return, you're going to be very well off. At one point in time, Kiplinger was a place where you could go and study mutual funds. I didn't have that success now. So how in the world do you go about finding top performing mutual funds? And let's just see what I found. The top 25 mutual funds. This just happened to be something called Market Watch. And so by the top 25, we don't know. So these are some mutual funds that you could go buy today. And so if you were to click on one, this is how much, this is the name of the mutual fund, Vanguard Total Stock Market Index Fund. That is the name of the fund. Today's share price is $192.79. Okay, so, that looks familiar. Okay, there's our growth and income top performer. We're going to see why it's performing what it is. And I'm going to go look and find this. We're also going to find out, let's see, the fund managers. Let's see here. I'm going to go look. Hopefully I can find it. Okay, here we go. Here is, so this fund, there is nothing in a 10-year return, which means it's not 10 years old. Kind of like a kid or a dog or a pet or something. It's still in diapers. A mutual fund doesn't have a 10-year track record. It has a 5-year track record. There's your 10% right there. But remember that what Dave recommends is make sure that it has at least a 10-year track record. I'm going to also look and see, here's what this particular fund, if you click on holdings, this is what this company is made up of. They own 6 point, so out of their, let's see, how big is the fund? I'm looking for the fund amount, which is going to be millions or even billions of dollars. How big is the fund? How big is the fund? Let's see if it's here. It was probably here somewhere, but it's going to tell us. Oh, God. It's going to tell us how big the fund is somewhere. Let's just say millions and millions of dollars, because there are a ton of us all contributing money. But if you look at the breakdown, 30% of all the stocks they own is in technology. 15% is in the financial world. 11% is in consumer goods, in industries, healthcare. So their top holding right here is Apple. So out of the millions and millions and millions of dollars that we have all mutually funded this mutual fund, the mutual fund manager says that 6% of our holdings is going to be Apple. Our mutual fund also owns Microsoft and Amazon and NVIDIA. I think they make computer chips and games. Alphabet Inc. Anybody know what Alphabet is? Type if you know what Alphabet Inc. is. Here's the clue right here. Google. So if we owned a share of this mutual fund at $192, we bought one share. The other beauty about this is we own all of these companies under that umbrella for $192. Well, one share of Apple is worth more than that. So it also allows us to buy little bits and pieces of all of these big companies. Berkshire Hathaway, you've heard of. And so that's what this particular mutual fund is made up of. And again, I'm not going to go way down in the weeds, but I'm going to pick on one more, the Fidelity 500 Index Fund. First thing, so it is $148 a share. Let's see, a 10-year track record. You can't get 10%. You're right, 11.5. 11.5 annual average rate of return. And this category, what does it say? It is, so this is also, this would, with the Standard and Poor's 500 index, this would be called the growth category. And again, if you go down here, if you're truly a nerd and a geek and want to know kind of what their holdings are, you just simply click over here to holdings. And more than likely, it's going to own some of the same stuff. Apple, Microsoft, Amazon. I don't think we saw Amazon. Google, Tesla. So this company also is in the technology industry, finances, consumer sciences. And these mutual fund managers, guys, they're doing all the heavy lifting for us. All you have to say is, hey, Mr. Investment Advisor, Mr. HR person, Mr. 401k, Mr. Mutual Fund, Mr. Benefits Manager at work. Within our retirement fund, do we have the ability to purchase a Fidelity 500 index fund? Oh yeah, that's one of our offerings. What am I in? Oh, you're in, you didn't specify anything, so we put you in the super conservative, you know. And then here's a question to ask at work. What has my retirement fund been averaging over the last 10 years? What is the average annual rate of return? Oh, well, we've made you 3%. You know, I'd fire that guy as fast as I could, or at least switch your holdings within your mutual funds or within your retirement plan at work. Is any of this making sense? I'm going to pause here for questions and comments. Somebody open their mic. Go ahead.
With our retirement funds at work, it's set where you pick the year that you kind of plan to retire. So if you pick 2023 or 2024, 2025, it's made up of both a lot of mutual funds within there. And so you can go in there, you can see, what they're investing. But I do need to go and look at what you just said, the average annual rate of return that I'm getting. I do good. I really do. We've been doing good. So thank
Okay.
God for that. So yes, all of this is familiar to me in
Well, and
reference to.
you may not have to change a theme. A lot of
Mhm.
times, based on how many you have years, the closer you get to retirement, typically what your company is going to do on your behalf is make you a little less aggressive. Because
Right.
if you have $100,000 in retirement, you're going to retire in a year. All of a sudden, they may say you are not buying any of Waukesha's pie company because since you're retiring in a year, I don't want you to be as aggressive. I want you to slow down and be conservative so that your nest egg is there when you retire. Not a huge fan of that. I'm fine, but companies do that for their employees. I am kind of I've been doing this for 25, so since I was 18. So what a lot of the mutual fund investors advise is dance with the one who brung you. So in other words, just because of your age, you don't have to change your investing style. Will I still, honor that? I don't know. But again, do what is comfortable for you. And if you are knowledgeable about it, to go have these conversations. Well, is there some, just because you put down, oh, yes, I'm going to retire in 3 years. Well, let's pretend I'm retiring in 10 years. Oh, well, I'm going to make you a little more aggressive. Yeah. Again, comfort level based on what you're going to do. And if you do that, notice that the offerings on the types of mutual funds change based on what year you tell them you may retire. And the $1,000,000 question is, if you're doing well, do you really need to change anything? That is, obviously just for you, yourself, your spouse, your investment fund manager. I am not your investment advisor. That is not me. I'm just arming you with tools to take and make your decision, just like we talked earlier about insurance deductibles. So, any other questions or comments? I'm going to digress just a little bit. If you do not have a retirement plan at work, you can still buy mutual funds. Just go into any storefront, any advisor, and say, I want to open an investment account. Most of these accounts, you may have to have a $500 minimum or $1,000 minimum to open and purchase. You can also open what is called a Roth IRA. Roth IRA. So we'll talk maybe a little bit about those if we have time and a question about that. But anyway, that's all I'm going to do is go into the weeds. But I'm just Fidelity, Vanguard Institutional. You've heard of these names: Schwab, Value, Advantage, Money, Fund Investor. You can do as much homework as you want. And you can then look like that was a good one, like the data wasn't registering. Let's see. American Funds, Growth Fund of America. Man, I've got a lot of money in that fund. It's $58 a share. It is a growth. There you go. So it's not growth in income like we saw earlier. It is growth. So 25% of my money would probably be in here. 10-year average rate of return, almost 11%. And what are their holdings? It's going to be the same stuff more than likely. Yeah, they own more Microsoft. Looks like they're not as big of, for whatever reason, doesn't look like in this particular fund, they don't own any Apple. Not quite as heavy into technology. They're more into consumer goods. Little Microsoft, Amazon, Broadcom. So that's a consumer service. I think that's a cable company. Tesla, a consumer service, cars, Netflix, they own Netflix, 2%. United Healthcare Group, and a little bit of Google. So 94% of their holdings are in stocks. They keep 5% cash. Oh yeah, here you go. Okay, so I was looking in the wrong place. In this particular mutual fund, that mutual fund manager on a daily basis is managing $110 billion. A lot of buying power between, there's a whole bunch of us who have each contributed a little bit of money here and there. So my return is set by age of retirement also, and I look it over and make changes even though I didn't know what I was doing, but I guess continue earning. Okay, well now you can at least look at stuff at a little, now you know what you're looking for. And simply ask your retirement guy, hey, is there a way to put a little bit in here? And if you say, oh, I'm in my employer offers, it usually they group it. It's the 2050 plan. It's the 1040 plan. So each one of those plans have a little bit of different types of mutual funds underneath it. Again, just ask them, hey, what's the annual rate of return for the 2050 plan? What's the annual rate of return? Or look at my portfolio, Mr. HR benefits guy. What is my retirement, or what is the company retirement? What's the average rate of return for the last 4 or 5 or 6 or 8 or 10 years? Okay. So I think this was just one little fun exercise that I gave the Boy Scouts. I gave the Boy Scouts, okay, pretend you have $4,000. Go pick a small cap fund, a Waikisha. Go pick a mid-sized fund, go pick a large fund, and go pick an international fund. So those are and I said, you're going to invest $1,000 right here, $1,000. And I did this exercise back in 2015. So the rate is not great, but today I just happened to pull it up. And so I hadn't looked at these numbers, but I did plug in today's prices. So whatever happened to LAGWX mutual fund, not good. Back in 2015, it was worth $22. Today's price, $15. They have lost $295 because remember, we bought $1,000 worth. However, we've made up for it between these other 4 mutual funds. What if we would have put all of our eggs into that one small fund? We would have lost all of our money, but this one is doing well. This one is, this one. So since 2015, not a ton of money, but our $4,000 has made us $302 or 8%, with not adding a penny to it. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about kind of piggybacking a little bit more off of compound interest. I want to talk just a little bit more about that. And I want to show you just a really cool investment calculator right here. This, I believe, is at Smart Asset, smartasset.com. So let's take this little bit and let's just say, hey, we're just now getting started. Our emergency fund is funded. I'm going to put in $1,000. I am going to put $100 in every single month out of my paycheck. I just showed you 10% average annual rate of return. What if we could really do that? And what if we had 20 years till retirement? $1,000 we're going to start with, $100 a month at 10% for the next 20 years, $83,000. Oh, Greg, I don't have that much time. I got 10 years. Notice the difference and how time, is of the essence. Okay, well, we better bust it then. We better get our car paid for and scrape together as much as we can. And we're going to put in $500 a month because we only have 10 years to do it. What if you told a son or a daughter or some 18-year-old $1,000 I'm going to give you to start with, and I'm going to put in $100 a month at an average annual rate of return at 10%, you're going to work from age 18 until age 58 or even 68, let's say. You've got 50 years for that money to grow. The most it'll let us do is 30. Okay. So at 30 years, $245,000. You know, what if you had $10,000 to start with? What if you had $1,000 to start with? And by golly, I'm going to get rid of I can invest $500 a month for 30 years, instant millionaire. There's not an 18-year-old on this planet that shouldn't be a millionaire. They have 40 years to gather $1 million. And that's, this is not a lot. I mean, if we just teach and oh man, Greg, I'm older. It's not too late. You're still living, so any little bit that you can put in, the compound interest, guys, is what's key. And that's why I want you to look at the average annual rate of return. Because if you're sitting here on a CD at 2%, I mean, look at what that same money grows to. So the interest rate and those mutual funds and past performance, that's really key in helping you grow your money. Absolutely. Smartassets.com. Now, you want to see something else cool? Withdrawal calculator. Now I'm going to say you've built your $1 million, and you guys can come and play with this and put in your own numbers. I'm starting with $1 million. I'm retiring at age 60. I'm going to live to be 100 years old. I'm going to withdraw for 40 years, I'm going to live off my $1 million. I'm still going to make 8%. Again, dance with the one who brung you. I'm leaving it in my same mutual funds, but I am going to withdraw a little bit of money out of a mutual fund. The way you do that is you sell some shares. And let's say that I've got retirement at work of a couple thousand, little bit of Social Security or something like that. So let's say out of my $1 million, I'd really, in addition, well, let's say we have no money. Let's say we have no retirement plan. All we have is $1 million. I want to pull out $4,000 a month to live on. Let's see what that's going to do. So here's my $1 million right here. Year one, you're 60 years old, pulling out $4,000 a month, still earning 8% on your principal, pulling it out for 40 years. And you hear this, am I going to run out of money? Year one, there's your $1 million. When you're 100 years old, your same investment, because you're leaving a loan and withdrawing at a slower rate than you're making, has grown to $8.7 million. I think your kids are going to be okay. Wow. What if I'm going to live high on the hog? What if I live on $10,000 a month? Because I'm in debt and I'm going to blow through a lot of money. Year one, there's your balance, $1 million, or in this case, 954,000. You are out of money in 13 years. Pulling out 10,000 a month, earning 8% a year. Okay. Well, what if I pull out? This is fun because you can kind of sort of find the sweet spot. If I only use 8,000 a month, my money's going to last 21 years. Or what if I pull out $6,000 a month? Oh, okay. I'm getting closer to my sweet spot. 1 year, $1 million. 40 years down the road, I got $2 million. I bet you I can afford to withdraw about $6,500 a month. There you go. So there's my $1 million. Going to live for 100 years. At the end of 100 years, I still have $660,000. That's based on an 8% annual rate of return. Also based on, and so plug in your retirement. I have $325,000 in retirement. How in the world is that going to last me? It's called a part-time job or something. And you're going to have to live on, I don't know, $4,000 a month. Well, $325,000 into your retirement fund. Oh, well, wait a minute. I don't need 4,000 because my husband's going to get social. So I don't have to pull it all out of my retirement. I'm going to have social security income, and that's going to be 2,000 a month. So really, I only need to pull 2,000 out of retirement. Don't forget about your other sources of income. Oh, well, wait a minute. I'm going to hand out shopping carts at Walmart, and I'm going to make $1,000 a month. So I really only need to use about $1,000 a month out of my retirement. Starting amount 325. There it is. Pulling out $1,000 per month, making 8% for 40 years. Your $325,000 has grown to $3.8 billion. I think you're going to be fine. And so again, play with these numbers. And some of you don't have a lot of retirement, man. I'm going to encourage you to bust it as quick as you can. If you're planning, I mean, even, you know, if you're planning on living on social, or that's all you're living, you know, even a little part-time job to make $500, you know, this a month, this is the bucket. This is the number of years you're going to live. Annual rate of return. Go see a broker, go see a specialist, go see an expert, and say, you know, well, the dude from Lubbock said to look at average annual rate of return, you know, and so I didn't do 10% because you guys wouldn't even believe those numbers. So average, you know, and so this is very important. All of a sudden, look at the difference between 5% and 8%. You know, and this is starting with $200,000, withdrawing $1,000 a month, which is $12,000 a year for 40 years. Well, you're only pulling out 12,000. What's 8% of 200,000? $16,000. So you're making $16,000 a year. You're only pulling out $12,000 a year. So of course your money's gonna grow. These two calculators are awesome. If they don't motivate you, nothing will. These are great tools to paint a picture of exactly how you are, where you are going to be, and it will also show these to your aging parents. Am I going to run out of money? I'm afraid I'm going to run out of money. Mom, you got $800,000 in the bank. You're using $1,000 a month. If you want a raise, give yourself a raise. And if you show these and be conservative, I'm going to put it all in CDs and I'm going to make 4% a year. Well, again, things change drastically. Okay, now I can only afford to pull out $500 a month. Well, even then, $500 a month means you got to work full-time at Walmart instead of part-time in your retirement job, if you're only starting with $200,000. So bust it to get out of debt. Bust it to get a fully funded emergency fund of 6 months worth of living expenses, $15,000, $20,000. And then, man, you don't need to eat out every night. You're eating your retirement. Sock away, and it doesn't have to be through an employee-based retirement plan. Again, I hope I'm making myself clear. You can go into the bank and say, I want to open a mutual fund account. And here's $1,000, put $250 into growth, $250 into growth and income mutual funds, $250 into international funds, $250 into aggressive growth funds. Will you please help me pick those funds? And tell them we are looking at the top performing. What are the ones, you know, that are average annual rate of return of 8 to 10%? And that's about as much as you can, you know, kind of make it simple for the general population to understand. Love these two calculators. Smartasset.com for the growth calculator. I couldn't, and this is 360financialliteracy.org. 360financialliteracy.org for the withdrawal calculator. or I don't know what they called it, savings distribution calculator. I thought Smart Asset had one. Again, guys, I'm 4 or 5 years removed from teaching this stuff. So was this it? This was a good one too. Savings withdrawal calculator. Yeah, that one wasn't as good. So, what should you invest in? Again, when you go to invest, well, should I do my company plan, or should I do a 401, or should I do a Roth IRA? So the first thing you should do, in my opinion, Dave's opinion, is invest whatever you can in your employee-based plan to get matching funds. Does anyone have matching funds? Oh, they'll match up to 3% of my salary. Well, then don't be putting 6% in. Match 3%, because typically you can do better outside of company plans. And then if you still have extra money, go get you a Roth IRA. The difference in a Roth IRA, you've already brought that money home. You've paid taxes on it. So when you invest it in a Roth IRA, all of the growth and interest you make, you've already paid taxes on the principal, so there is no interest. When you deduct at work, you have not paid income tax on that money. So what happens is, oh, I make $2,000 a month, but I'm putting $200 into my employee retirement plan, so they're only going to tax me or hold taxes on $1,800. Well, it's all going into my retirement plan. And when you start withdrawing out of that retirement plan, they're going to treat that like earned income. And you will pay taxes then on that money because it was never payroll deducted. If you buy a Roth IRA, and that's the difference, you are buying a Roth IRA with your bring home money that you've already brought it home. You've already paid withholding taxes on that. And so then when you put it and it grows, you don't pay any taxes on that. I will see how soon I can retire. Exactly. What's your, and when you do a budget, what do you need a month to live on? I need $5,000. Okay. How are you going to get there? Well, my husband's social is $3,000. Okay. Well, if I use this thing and I retire now, it looks like I'm going to get $1,500 a month, on my benefits or whatever. Okay. Well, and then I've got my retirement plan over here. I got $250,000 in it. Plug that into the calculator, see if you can get to $5,000. I show this to some people, they're like, man, I'm $300 short. Great. And so I've had people quit and go get a part-time job for $300. So again, and I'm never clicked on this before, but when finding that calculator, this ought to be fun. How long will 1 million last in retirement? And so, see, I mean, there's a problem with that. They're taking $1 million, 20 years. What's the problem with that? They're probably taking $1 million. I'm just going to divide that real quick. $1 million. How long are they going to live? $1 million will last about 20 years. So 10 months is 100. That's 240 divided by 240 months. Yeah, so they're pulling out $4,166 per month to live on. What's wrong with that statement in that question? That's true. $1 million will last 20 years based on $4,100 a month to live on. What's the problem with that whole situation right there, or that line of thinking? What's the problem? As soon as you answer it, we get to quit. Somebody come up with the answer.
Is it they're not showing how much they're pulling out to live on per month?
Well, so what I did is I did a quickie calculation. I did $1 million.
Okay.
I did $1 million divided by 20 years. or 240 months, and that would show you can pull out 4166 a month to live on,
Mhm.
and then
Mhm.
you're out of money. The problem with
Or is
this,
it the interest?
there you go. You're
Yeah.
not figuring in any interest.
Right.
You're not going to sit on $1 million and stick it under the mattress. Remember over here, guys, when I showed you on that investment calculator, you are still growing your money. And this situation, oh, I can, and here you go. So that's painting a humdrum. I can never afford to retire. And the internet is filled with all of this kind of crap. Pardon my French, but oh, man, $1 million is only going to last you 20 years in retirement. No, it's not. I mean, go make 2% a year in a stupid CD and you can extend the life of your $1 million. $1 million times 0.02. I mean, you're making $20,000 a year at 2%. Oh, I only need to pull 20,000 a year because I've got Social Security from my other job or my husband or my spouse or partner or whatever. But be careful about what you read. Also be careful about who you ask. Your broke brother-in-law is not your financial advisor. Come on. Oh, who was it that did the ha-ha? Come on, Annette, give me oh no, who was it that did the ha-ha? It's Harvard. I'm waiting for a ha-ha. Your broke brother-in-law, your broke friends, and your broke relatives are not, are not your financial advisors, nor is the internet. Can I retire with $700,000? I don't even want to open that because it's not going to take into consideration how much you need to retire on, what are your other sources of income, and are you willing to work part-time, and what interest rate are you making per year on that $700,000? For some retirees, $700,000 nest egg could support a long and secure retirement, while for others, that sum may only last a few years. Well, I will agree with the next statement. Effective retirement planning requires gaining an understanding of key elements. Key elements: interest rate, how much per year are you going to pull out? What are your other sources of income? How much debt do you have? How much do you need a month to live on? And there's some lame brain idiot putting these 3 sentences together for some, and they're calling yourself an expert. So there you go. Investing 101. Has that helped you guys at all tonight? Questions,
Absolutely.
comments?
That helped a lot. I do have a question. Can you explain to me how does a savings account work that has, say they have a interest rate of 4 or 5%, and then I think it says yield, and then it has a compound interest on top of that. How is that calculated? If you
Boy, that's a
understand what I'm asking.
yes, I do. Like for example, even some CDs now, 7-month CDs, the average annual yield. So the average annual yield is what the money would be for a 12-month period. So if you've got, like CD, 7-month annual percentage rate of 5%. Well, it's only 7 months. So you put $1,000 in, you're going to make $500, but you only get 7/12 of that. So
Okay.
what the APR, I think the performance is going to be lower than the annual yield, I believe, because you're not leaving it in there for the whole 1 year in order, but they sell it again. Know what you're buying. Great question. Average annual yield is 10%, but it's a 5-month CD. Well, yeah, I'm going to get 10. I would get 10% if I left it in there for a year, but you're only selling it to me for 5 months.
Okay.
I'm only, so my average, my percentage yield, if you take your principal divided by your interest or by your dollars of interest, it's going to be a lower percentage. It's almost like, oh yeah, the asterisk, I've got to reveal that it's really, even though I'm advertising a yearly rate, yeah, you're really only going to get this. I don't know if that helped. and all.
Yeah, it does. The other thing I wanted to add is more comments. So I had a trip to Target today, and I left out of the store with some items that I probably would not have bought had I had cash in an envelope. So tomorrow I'm going to the bank to get cash to put in the envelope. So I'm going to start using that system.
Yeah, and even if your envelope, do you do groceries and toiletries and households in Target, or do you do just
Yes.
grocery? Okay, so
Yes.
call it the Target envelope, or call it. And I don't mean to complicate the issues. My wife and I are kind of nerds, but we have a household envelope and a groceries envelope. But for ease and just for you to start, man, yeah, just call it Target or Walmart or whatever. And here's how I would. So I'm going to pick on you just a little bit in a good way. So you bought some things you didn't really think you needed. So if you don't mind me asking, how much did you spend today in Target?
So I spent $135
Okay,
and
so
about
that's fine. I don't need to know. So my question is about how many times a month do you do the $135 trips? Once a month, every 2 weeks? I do one big one and then a bunch of little ones. So tell me your Target visiting habits first.
typically every other month.
Okay, so that 135 was kind of 2 months worth of household and toilet
Yes.
things like that. Because not
Yes.
every month do we run out of
Paper
dishwashing.
towels and all of that. Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
what I would do in order to help you budget, I would put you get paid monthly or every 2 weeks.
Every 2 weeks, right?
Okay, so if I heard, let's all do the exercise with Annette. I heard $140 every 2 months at Target, which is, and I rounded it up because it's easier to divide. So therefore, Annette should be budgeting $70 a month at Target, or $35 a paycheck, cash wise.
Oh,
And that's what you're stuffing the envelope with. I'm not saying deprive yourself at Target,
mhm.
but by golly, monitor it for a month or two and say, wow, man, cash is powerful because all of a sudden I'm doing this when I go into Target
Mhm.
and I've got how much left? I think I'm going to put back the family sized Oreo double stuffed cookies for $7. And I'm going to choose a box of saltine crackers instead because I want this to last for next time.
Mhm. Well, I
Well,
did come home. Excuse me. I took out the items that I felt I didn't need to purchase. I took them and put them in the car because they're going back tomorrow as well.
well, and so again, just have that good little, we don't want this to be punishment. So, start with $60 a month and prove to yourself that you can do it on $50 a month.
Okay.
And then all of a sudden, you have just found 10, 20, 30, 40, $50. What if you did the same thing with work lunches and the same thing with eating out?
Mhm.
I've just given you guys at least $100 a month raise.
Mhm.
So don't tell me that we can't find money to set aside for Christmas or fill in the blank, or I have no extra money to make extra car payments, or I have yada, yada, I can't get my emergency fund together. Just by doing that one little exercise, I promise, Annette, that, yeah, I mean, and you'll be amazed at once this starts snowballing. Then all of a sudden you find you call your insurance deductible. Then all of a sudden you shop a cell phone plan, and guys, we're talking 100, 200, $300 extra per month of newfound free money just by giving a crud about your personal finances and not using the excuse that we're too busy, I'll get to it later. Because all of a sudden we wake up and we're 60 years old and we say, I better start saving for retirement. And based upon all the interest, the compounding interest, the calculators I've just shown you, the best time to plant a tree is today. Anyone else? Good stuff tonight. Good meaty stuff tonight. And I'm 3 minutes over, so I'm going to close this in prayer unless anyone has anything. Father God, I just thank you so much for, these 9 weeks. We've got one to go. Lord, give us this day our daily bread. Help each and every one of us have the spousal chats. If we're single, Lord, help us to find a good accountability partner. Take one little nugget out of this whole 10 weeks. If it's one envelope, if it's one conversation with our retirement guy at work, if it's one conversation with a spouse, if it's one conversation with our kids, if it's shopping one cell phone plan, whatever it is, Lord, give us this day our daily bread. Reward us. Help us to be good stewards because it's not ours anyway. We want you to be proud of the way we have handled your money, your resources while we live on this earth. Be with every single person on this call and in this class. Bless us in Jesus' name. Amen. Good stuff tonight. We'll see you next week for our final. We're going to talk about the birds and bees, how to bring up the conversation of finances with elderly kids, or elderly parents, or adult kids. Oh my gosh, we got to talk about that stuff. We'll see you next week. Good night.
Good night.